Hello, I'm nature photographer Peter James, and today I'm going to give instructions for how to hang a multi-panel metal print from my Large as Life collection. We're going to use French cleats to hang these from the wall. So these get mounted to the wall at even spacing, and then the frame of the print actually sits right in this. There's a lot of steps. It's not hard, it just requires a bit of patience. Okay, for the tools, you're going to need a pair of scissors, a measuring tape, a small bubble level, a laser level, which these are like $30 on mine now, a drill with a 1/4-inch bit, and a drill with a Phillips head. You can use one drill and switch between bits, but it goes quicker if you have both. The French cleat kits come with the prints and also the hardware and drywall anchors you'll need. The hammer is for driving in the drywall anchors. I like to use a small handheld vacuum to collect the dust as I drill into the drywall so as not to make a big mess, but you can always just clean up later using regular vacuum. These are the locking mechanism T-screws that you may choose to use later on. When cleaning, doing the final cleaning, you're going to want a really soft paper towel. This is a product called Viva, which is almost like a towel. It's just so soft. And then a duster to just clean the prints in the end. And then this is what the certificate of authenticity looks like. So if your print doesn't have that attached yet, you'll need just some tape to attach that to the back. And I like to use double stick tape. And then in most cases, you're also going to want to have a small step ladder or a large step ladder, depending on how high the wall is. One other thing that's very helpful is having a towel on hand, because you never want to lay two metal prints together. Okay, so now that we've unpacked these prints, we're gonna spread them out on the wall, soak in the beauty for a moment, and then we're just gonna inspect them real quick to make sure that none of the edges are bent, we don't see any major damage. So the next thing is to attach the certificate of authenticity. So I'm just going to put a little tape on each of the corners. We're always going to want to put the certificate on the far right corner because that's the print that has the signature and print number on it. So now it's time to decide the exact positioning on the wall. So the first step is to position it horizontally. Line it up. And one neat thing with the French cleats is that once you have them in place, you can actually slide the print back and forth. So we have maybe five inches or sometimes more of play back and forth. Consider, maybe we want to go a tiny bit over. The gap between the prints should be 3/4 of an inch. I liked it better before. This is the time to get picky. And of course, if you're working with other decision makers, make sure that they're involved at this point deciding. First, I'm just going to mark the far right edge there so that I have a reference for where we want this on the wall. And then I'm going to hold the print up to different heights and adjust it higher or lower depending on what the person that's helping me do this is saying. And then we'll mark the bottom edge of the print at the height we want it. So when you're picking these prints up, either have two people, one on each side, hold it, and you want to grab it from the frame, basically you don't want to get fingerprints on the print. So grab it from the frame. If you're doing it by yourself, have one hand on the frame and one hand right in the center on the bottom. I usually put my pencil in my mouth, so have it easy access. Okay, up or down?
Just a little up. I think there's
How about there? I think actually the chair makes us want to go a little higher. So right there?
higher's good, yeah.
Okay, so I'm holding it, the bottom edge away from the wall a little bit so the top edge can rest while I mark this. So now that we have it marked, I actually can set the whole print aside for the time being. And then because they're gonna be touching each other, I'm gonna make sure to have a towel over the middle one. So now we're gonna do the math. For each panel, we're gonna divide it into thirds and have the cleats a third of the way in on each side. So for these ones, it's a 40-inch print. So that means 13 1/3 inches in from each side. So the way we're gonna mark the wall from the right to the left is from the far point that we marked, we're gonna come in 13 1/3 inches, make a mark, go another 13 1/3 inches and make another mark. Now for the next mark, we actually need to have it be double the distance. So double the 13 1/3, plus we have to add in the 3/4 inch gap. I find using a calculator to be very helpful too. 40 inches divided by 3, 13 1/3, times 2, 26 2/3, plus 3/4 is 27.4. I'm rounding that up to 27.5. So we're going to have the distance from the first mark is 13 1/3, and then another 13 1/3. Those are the two marks for the first print. Then there's a gap of 27.5 to the next mark, and then another gap of 13 1/3 to that next mark. Then we go for the final panel, 27.5, and mark the first mark for that panel, and then go another 13 1/3 inches over for the final mark for the third panel. 40 inches is a little tricky, but a lot of times it's simpler. Like on a 36-inch panel, you're going 12, 12. And then the next gap would be 24 plus 3/4, so 24 3/4. Then 12, then 24 3/4, and then 12. Draw it out on a piece of paper first. So I have my mark for where we want these to be side to side, all the way down here. So I'm going to transfer that up by just letting this hang. I've marked the edge of the print. So now that we have the vertical lines marked across the wall, I'm going to create the horizontal lines that intersect with these and make a little plus sign. And that will mark exactly where the French cleat's going to go. The next thing to understand is that the French cleats sit inside this frame, and the distance from the top to the bottom edge of the cleat is 3 1/8 inch. So the easiest way to calculate that is to extend your tape measure to the full height of the print. In this case, they're 60 inches. So I'm going to lock my tape measure in at 60 and put that where we marked the bottom edge of the print. And then I'm going to come up to where my tape measure says 3 1/8 inch, and I am going to mark a horizontal line there. So that will be my mark for where I want the bottom edge of all of these cleats. So I'm going to go ahead and erase the other two marks I made now. When erasing off a wall, you always need to erase it really good, wipe off the eraser bits, and then do it a second time to really get it all the way off. Okay, so now the next step is I'm going to go across and create the vertical marks for the positionings of each of the cleats. So for this part, I need the laser level. So the way the laser level works is once it's on a flat surface, it will, it has a balancing mechanism that once it steadies, it's going to be projecting a red or green laser line horizontally across the wall. This can actually be used at a lower height than the place we're marking, and we'll be measuring up from that to the height we want. But the closer you are to your mark, the better. So this can be put up on a ladder, it can be put on a door frame, it can be put on any level surface that's up high. So I'm going to try here. So what I'm doing now is I'm looking at the mark I made, which is from that mark 60 inches up minus the 3 1/8. So that mark is exactly 21 inches above the laser line. So that's where I'm going to want all of these to go height-wise. this is the most important part of this whole installation going smoothly, is that the vertical height of the cleats be identical all the way across. Get that red line right on 21, and then at the top of the tape, make a line. All right, now we have all of our cleat locations marked. So the next step is to mark the holes where we're going to put the drywall anchors. And the way we do that is we line the plus sign up right in the middle and at the bottom edge of the cleat, holding it on the wall, and then putting the small bubble level on it, getting it nice and level so the bubble's right in the middle, and then taking a pencil and marking around these ovals. Now you see that those are not round, they're ovals. So that means after we get these in place, there's actually a little wiggle room up and down, but you'll see that in the adjustment phase, that comes in handy and it's actually necessary. While I'm over here, I'm going to erase the pencil marks I made for the edges. All right, they're all marked. Now we take our 1/4-inch drill bit and drill the holes. So when you're installing these, you're planning on using drywall anchors. There's no need to hit a stud to support the weight. But if you do hit a stud at one of your marked spots, it's no problem. You just switch from the plan of using the drywall anchor to just using a 2-inch wood screw. That will go into a wooden stud. If it's a steel stud, then you use a small drill bit to put a hole in it first, and then use your 2-inch screw. But you also have the option to just move 2 inches to either side, and then you'll just avoid the stud altogether. Okay, the next step is to pop the drywall anchors into the holes and hammer them in. The next step is to screw the cleats in. And first we're going to screw them in loosely, and then we'll use the bubble level to get them to the exact position and then tighten them down. Now get that bubble level up there, and looking at your original plus sign mark, get it perfectly aligned with that horizontal line. And then align the bubble to the center of the level, and then tighten your screws. Sometimes you need to, sometimes it'll move a little bit once you tighten it. So you need to just loosen it, adjust it, and tighten again. Again, the exact height of these cleats is what is going to make all the panels line up. So this is the step to really take your time on. Get them as perfectly matched to the mark as possible, and that'll create a lot less work with the adjusting step. Cleats are in place, time to hang these beautiful prints. So to put them on the wall, I'm going to have to grab the prints from the front. But again, I'm not going to put my fingers on the surface of the print because I don't want to have to clean off fingerprints later. I'm going to wrap my fingers around the back and grab the frame, and the edge of my hand is going to be against the edge of the print. So I'll line the print up underneath the set of cleats and then go just over it by about 3 or 4 inches. Let the top edge of the print rest against the wall, and let the bottom edge of the print be about 1 inch away from the wall. And then slowly lower it down until you feel it sitting on the cleats. Now you really want to make sure that the cleats are locked into the lip in the frame. So before you let go, just try pulling a little bit on each side to make sure it's really on them. you'll notice that this is really high to the ceiling, and that's because they're going to have furniture underneath this spot. So normally you wouldn't hang it quite that high. You generally position them about eye level, but in this case, this is what works for their furnishings. Doesn't look too bad, huh? So now we're going to adjust the 3 panels to make sure they're all in perfect alignment. The main thing is you want to make sure that these gaps are 3/4 of an inch all the way down. In other words, if one print is a little higher on one side, the gap will angle to the side and there'll be a bigger gap on the top or the bottom. So you want it to be even. And you also want the top edge and the bottom edge to be at the same height. There's a natural variance in the height of these prints, 1/8 to up to 1/4 of an inch. So if you do have one panel that's slightly taller than the others, you want to just lower it slightly so that it's evenly spaced so that you don't really notice that. The nice thing with having the 3/4 inch gap is that it kind of blends and you can't tell the difference of 1/8 inch of being off. So there's 2 ways to check the gaps. One is to use a tape measure, measure at the bottom, measure up high. But what is a little bit simpler is just actually sliding the 2 panels together till there's no gap, and then you can really see how even are they. I took my time, I used a laser level. These 2 prints are perfectly aligned, so those are set, no adjustment required. Okay, I'm gonna look on this side. Okay, so on this side, I'm seeing that there's a slightly bigger gap at the top than there is at the bottom. So when they're touching at the bottom, I see about 1/8 of an inch gap at the top. So what I'm gonna do to correct that is I'm gonna raise this edge of this print up by raising that cleat up. And 1/8 of an inch is pretty small. So to adjust this to where it just corrects 1/8 of an inch, we're talking like a 1/16 of an inch, maybe even a 32nd of an inch to raise this cleat to adjust that. I'm gonna pull this away from the wall first, and then I can grab it. So if you're doing the same thing in the middle, right, you have to pull it away and then you can get a handle on it. I will mention that it is possible, and sometimes our clients prefer to have no gaps. With a no gap installation, we design it so that the image is continuous. And the bottom line is it is way more precise. You have to get the alignment absolutely perfect, height, and having the prints aligned perfectly to get them right. So I usually account an extra hour or 2 of adjustment to get everything perfect on a no gap print. I'll also point out that this is a carpeted floor, so I'm not worrying about setting the prints on the ground, but if you are working someplace with a hard floor, we recommend putting the towels down under the prints at all times. It's perfect. That's probably the least amount of adjustment I've ever had to make on a multi-panel. You can definitely expect to spend a fair amount of time tweaking and adjusting to get everything lined up. So the cleats are designed to be able to be raised up and down. They have a little bit of wiggle room. It's about 1/4 of an inch. So that allows you to adjust the height of the cleats, which allows you to adjust the vertical position of the print. Okay, we're really close to being done. And this step is optional, but if you want, you can secure the bottom edges of the print with a locking T-screw mechanism that will hold the print to the wall. There's 2 main reasons to do that. One would be if you want to secure the prints so no one can remove them, or if you're in an exterior application and you don't want the prints to blow down in the wind. So the other reason to do it is if you have one corner of one of the prints that maybe sticks out a little bit, like this one does, and you want to hold it flat to the wall so that everything lines up seamlessly. So we're going to drill a 1/4 inch hole, pound this in, and then this actually just gets manually put in using the tool that comes with it. locking T-screws and the tool are available upon request. So let me know if you need one or more of these, and I'll make sure they get sent to you with your order. Okay, so make sure you have your pencil handy. Take the plastic piece off of the T-screw. Pull the print out from the wall, and you're actually going to put the T-screw in and turn it so that it's in the groove of the print. And then you want to check to make sure that it's square to the wall. Take a pencil and just make a little line on either side of where you're going to want to drill that hole. Because the point of this is to tighten it to the wall, we want to go pretty darn low with this. We want to get it maybe between 1/8 and 1/4 inch from the wall. And this has to be in the horizontal position. Get the frame on there and just tighten it into place, and that's going to hold it. Lock it into place. All right, we have come to the final step, and that is just cleaning the print. So take a really soft paper towel or a microfiber cloth. These paper towels are called Viva, and they're the best ones I've found. All we're doing with the paper towel is looking for any fingerprints. We don't need to try to clean the whole thing. We're just looking for any spots. And then if you find something, it's just really a matter of taking your soft cloth and just polishing. So the last step is just dusting them. So take a duster, preferably a feather duster, and run the prints from top to bottom. And that's it, you're done. So I wish you a smooth installation with your multi-panel print. This is nature photographer Peter James saying thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me, or if you're watching this video on YouTube, leave your questions in the comments below. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, like this video, and as always, get out there and enjoy nature, and we'll see you in the next video.